cast the first stone here in the Electric Ballroom. Keith Roth, Danny Aniello, back on the line with Punky Meadows.
The band Angel, if MTV was around a little sooner, you guys would definitely be a household name. You know, a lot of bands like Motley Crue and a lot of bands like that were influenced by you, you know, and many bands I was in, I know that. And
yeah, well, if MTV hadn't been around, it would have been different for us, I'm sure of that, you know. But
yeah, but I mean, the
back
way...
in those days,
oh, go ahead.
I'm saying back in those days, you know, you in order to be seen, if you didn't have a hit record, you had to go out and tour and tour and tour and tour.
Right,
and
right.
You know, you built a following. But with MTV, you know, you could be seen 24 hours a day, you know, and that broke so many bands that way.
I mean, let me ask you, so, I mean, how did you connect with the other guys from Angel? How did you meet Frank and Greg and all those guys?
Well, I was playing the Cherry People at the Bayou in Georgetown, and Greg came in one night and watched me play, and he was cool. I thought he was cool looking and stuff, and he thought I was cool. He liked me a lot, and he said we should get together sometime and put a band together. So
right.
Eventually, the Cherry People kind of broke up, and I went down to Mississippi with Greg and the Biloxi to play with this band that he was in. But that band was so terrible, I couldn't stand the band. It was awful. But Greg was still just so cool. I mean, Greg's the kind of guy that walked into a room and you knew he was somebody. You know what I mean?
Right.
He had a lot of charisma, and he was cool. But anyway, so I said to Greg, this is not going to work out, so I ended up heading back east up to Boston and met up with Mickey, because Mickey was an old friend of mine, and we grew up together.
Yeah, great.
And we put together Daddy Warbucks, which was Bucks, and up with Ralph Moorman, you know, who was the singer with Joe Perry Project too.
Right.
And so we put that band together up in Boston, and then from there, I met Frank Conley. We met Frank Conley, who was the manager of Aerosmith. He managed Bucks at the time, and we did an album, Capitol Records. And
wow.
And then I met David Krebs through that, and actually Jack Douglas produced that record. So I met Jack Douglas by doing that record. And
I love Jack. I mean, he's been on the show several times, and
he's great.
I hope his memoirs come out soon, because I know he was in the process of either getting a deal or got the deal done. But I mean, you know, the history. I'm sure you'll be part of that Jack Douglas history as well. There's no doubt about it.
I hope so, because it was Jack Douglas and Jay Messina, and they did the Bucks album. So anyway, what happened with that album? Daddy Warbucks played it down in D.C. for a couple of years, because we got a house band gig down there, but then Greg showed up again at that club and saw Mickey and I, and so we decided to put a band together. So we broke up Daddy Warbucks, put Angel together in a little club called Bogies down there, and then we started the bidding war. And that's when actually what happened was David Krebs asked Mickey and I to join the New York Dolls.
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah, right.
That's
I was telling Keith about that.
I mean, so Johnny Thunders, I guess, was on his way out at that point, right?
Yeah, he was out, and so David said, hey, you know, I'd like you and Mickey to join the New York Dolls. And we said, well, David, listen, we got this band called Angel we'd like you to come and see.
Yeah.
And so David came down, he said, okay. So he came down and he saw Angel, and once he saw Angel, you know, it was just, you know, he begged us to sign with him, and I wish we had signed with him, because, you know, that's where I wanted to go, but he put Greg and Mickey and myself on a conference call on the phone, and he said, if you guys don't sign with me, you're doing a mental masturbation. and I agreed with him, you know, but the problem was Greg had this guy, David Joseph, out in L.A. that was his friend, and he came to see us too. And so did Stanley Perlman, who managed Booster Colton. We started the bidding war. Everybody wanted to sign us up.
Right.
Wow, that's great.
But all the guys wanted to go out to California. They had palm trees in their eyes, I guess, you know.
Yeah, they saw that.
I wanted to stay in New York with Lieber and Krebs, but we went to California.
Sandy would have kept you in New York, that's for sure, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, you know, I was an East Coast guy, you know what I mean, but. We went to California, and then we got to deal with Casablanca, and I guess you know that story.
Well, real quick, Gene, Paul, and Ace came to see you guys, and you know, as Gene says, I don't know if it's true, but he made the call into Casablanca, correct?
Well, what happened was we were playing. Angel was playing at this club Bogies, and we were having lines around the block, and we had the whole Angel thing going on right then and there. We had the whole opening tape, the Ben Hur soundtrack playing. We were doing the flash pots and all that.
That's great.
Knocking the bottles off the walls and stuff. and Gene and Paul and Ace came down. They had been playing at the Capitol Center that night, and they came down and they saw us and they freaked out. And
wow.
And Gene looked at me, and I would just do this move where I had this. I would keep my hand over my head and point at my guitar and play with one hand. And Gene said, "Classic," you know. And he said, "You guys are great," and this and that. So then we thought it was cool. So anyway, they left, and we kept on playing. And then we went to California, and we were shopping a record deal. And Casablanca came up, and so our manager said, "Well, let's call Casablanca and see if they're interested." And so,
wow, I mean, there was a point there when Kiss actually wanted you in the band, right? When they were dealing with all that issues with Ace at that point,
Once Ace left, yeah.
Yeah, that was later on. That was later on. But what happened was, anyway, so David calls Neil and says, we got this band Angel, and Gene Simmons had seen them and thought they were really great. So Neil Bogart says, I'll tell you what, let me call Gene and I'll get back to you. Because Kiss are playing Anaheim, and I'll get Angel to open up for them and see what they say.
Right.
So anyway, so Neil calls back and he says, listen, I'll sign the band sight unseen because Gene said, under no circumstances will Angel ever open up for Kiss.
Wow, man. Yeah.
So right
And
there, yeah, that got him like, oh my God, I got to get these guys under my wing now.
So it was cool. So we actually did play for him. We went down to this little rehearsal place and the Valley and played when he was knocked out, and then
Right.
we signed a stuff record deal. And
That's a great story.
I obviously I discovered Angel, obviously, like a lot of kids did, because, Kiss was so part of our DNA. And then, you see a band that was really the complete opposite of Kiss with the Casablanca logo. And I mean, I bought, an impulse buy. I guess it was On Earth was the first record that I bought. And I came home and I was like, I turned it on. I was like, man, these guys are freaking awesome. What a great band these guys are.
Oh, yeah.
cool.
And that kind of opens up the floodgates.
And your albums are timeless, man. I mean, any Angel fan will tell you could throw them albums on any day of the week, and they're just like as amazing as it was when you first got the album,
No, that's cool. I appreciate that.
Did you write your leads for the albums, or did some of them, did you just wing a few of them?
Well, I would wing a few of them, and I would, compose some of them, depending on what the song was, what it called for at the time. I think when our first album, we were pretty much winging it because we were more of a progressive,
right?
Heavier type of band, and then as time went on, we were, of course, getting pressure to get singles out, and so we started writing poppier tunes. And don't get me wrong, I like pop tunes.
Yeah,
of course.
Because I love the Beatles, and they were the best pop band ever.
Absolutely.
They'll be remembered like Mozart, and people will be talking about the Beatles in 1,000 years from now.
Yeah.
Oh, of course.
No doubt.
And then playing in house business, my clubs, I had to play everything. I mean, I had to play soul, R&B, country, pop,
right,
heavy metal, and write originals too. So I like all kinds of music. I mean, I love country music and stuff like that just as much as anything else.
Yeah, you were telling me that. Your leads are so memorable. That's the thing, and that's the one thing I loved and caught my ear. And I would just practice them over and over and play along to your albums. But that's one thing great about your leads, man. They're so memorable. It's like you wrote like a song inside a song. And that's what influenced me to do a lot of my leads. I really,
very melodic.
I try to keep the melody in there with some of the quickness to, it's like writing a song with your guitar.
Well, that's cool, Danny. But like I said, you're a hell of a guitar player yourself, man. So you're knocking the dick in the dirt. I probably shouldn't say that.
No,
thanks again, Punky, man.
Another cool thing that I remember, is I remember you guys were part of the Foxes movie, and Cherie, I used to play in her band, and I love Cherie. I mean, was that just kind of a one-day thing, or were you guys on set kind of getting to hang with them a little bit while that movie was being made?
Well, that's the funny thing about movies like that. You go into like 7 o'clock in the morning, and you go into costume, and and then you're sitting there all day long with makeup on and stuff, and then they call you down after they put the lighting up together and the atmosphere and the smoke, everything in the hall, and you come down and you play for 15 minutes and you're done. So you sit around pretty much waiting all day long when you're making movies, I guess. And so we met Jodie Foster, but and she was just a young kid, and she was infatuated by us. She would just stare at us, But we actually did a tour with the Runaways when they first came out. They actually got some shows for us, a short tour with them, so I knew them from back then,
Yeah, they were a fun band back then. I mean,
they were cool.
They were the first really female rock band that actually played their own instruments and kind of wrote their own songs. I mean, they had the Kim Fowley influence, but they were cool. Very cool. I mean, that was a good package. I mean, and Cherie's out. They're still pretty much all out there looking pretty good and still doing it.
Hey, why don't we play something from the Runaways right now off of Queens of Noise? Danny Aniello, Keith Roth, and Punky Meadows right here in the Electric Ballroom.